All right, everybody. So welcome to the Mylio Photos coffee break. My name is Angela, and today we're going to be talking about travel, specifically summer travel and things you can do to get your Mylio library ready for hitting the road. Before we dive in, I do want to let you know about some of the other things we have going on for you. So next week will be a very short week. We will have live Q&A on Tuesday. We will have Lori's Just Ask session, which is a Q&A for new users on Wednesday. Those are both at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, but we will not have Q&A on Thursday, and we will have no coffee break on Friday. We're going to be taking a little bit of time off for the 4th of July holiday, and then we will reconvene the following week with some really cool stuff about what we're working on and what we've been working on actually for the last couple of years with the latest, greatest version of Mylio that we hope to release later this year. So for next week's events, live Q&A and Just Ask, you can go to community.mylio.com/events or scan that QR code on the screen. That'll take you right to the events page and you can get all of the details. So I hope you guys will join us for that stuff next week, but just keep in mind, short week. Hopefully that all makes sense. So let's go ahead and move on to today's presentation, which is pre-trip peace of mind, getting Mylio photos ready for your summer travel. So some of you might have already embarked on your summer trips or some of your summer travel, but hopefully this gets you in time to set things up so you don't have to worry about storage or syncing or backup while you are traveling. That is the entire goal of this particular presentation. Excuse me. So the reason this matters is I don't want you to get on your trip and get something like disk storage full. Or maybe you lose your phone, or, God forbid you get pickpocketed or something like that. I want to make sure you're able to protect as much of those memories as possible while you're traveling. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you a few things you can do in Mylio to get ready for your summer travel, as well as give you a couple of checklists for what to do before you leave and a couple of things you can do while you're on the road. So first off, we're going to look at checking the storage on the devices you're planning to bring. We're going to talk a little bit about phones, tablets, and laptops, and recognizing that different trips require different technology and what you're bringing with you might change for different types of trip. We're going to look at making sure your sync is up to date before you leave. I'll show you how to set up a travel backup drive and how to get your files into it. And then we'll go through a scenario of 3-2-1 backup that travels with you. And then finally, we'll wrap up with, like I said, some checklists for what to do before you leave and how to make sure things run smoothly while you're on the road. So the first thing you're going to want to do before you leave on your trip is check your storage. And you're going to want to do this on every single device that you're taking with you. So you're going to want to check the storage on your phone if you're going to be taking pictures with your phone. If you're taking a tablet and planning on loading things from your phone into Mylio and working with them on a tablet, you're going to want to make sure you have enough room on that tablet. If you're bringing a laptop, you want to make sure you have enough storage space on that laptop. If you're bringing an external drive to store your vacation photos, you want to make sure that has enough storage. And then, of course, if you're bringing a standalone camera, you want to make sure you have enough memory cards to where you don't have to keep wiping them every time you fill up a card. So there's a lot of things to think about as you're getting ready for a trip. So let's take a look at what you want to do specifically in Mylio. For every single device that you're planning to take with you, you're going to want to go into both the master settings for that device, so into your system settings, and take a look at your overall storage. And you're also going to want to go into Mylio and take a look at the storage settings there. So you can do this on every single device that has Mylio installed. And let me just switch over here to Mylio, and we're going to walk through that here for my Mac. And it's the same procedure if you're looking at on a tablet, and very similar if you're looking at it on your phone. We're going to jump over to the dashboard and devices, and we're going to look here at my MacBook Pro because that's, depending on what kind of trip I'm taking, I'm either going to take my tablet or my laptop, sometimes both, depending on what my needs are. So let's say in this trip, I want to take my MacBook Pro. What I'm going to do is go over here to device storage and take a look at what Mylio is using, what overall is available on my computer, and what space I have to work with. And you're going to want to think about how many pictures you think you might be taking, how long you're going to be traveling, and making sure you have enough space on each of those devices that you're taking with you to store those originals. One thing I want to point out is when you're traveling, the cloud is a variable. Having cloud backup is great, but unless you have really strong bandwidth and fast speeds, when you're taking a lot of pictures, those things might not always be able to get backed up to the cloud in a regular fashion. So you want to make sure you have enough storage space on every single device that you're taking to hold those original quality photos. So taking a look here at the storage, I can see that my MacBook Pro has just shy of 2 TB of storage. This white bar here means other things. You can see here other stuff on my Mac that are taking up space. I can see what Mylio is currently using. And based on these settings down here, the device storage, I can see what Mylio is allowed to use. So Mylio right now has 220 gigs of growable space, and I've got over 500 gigs total of space on this computer. That's actually really respectable. And if I were going on a 2 to 3 week trip and planning on taking a lot of photos, I could almost certainly keep all of my originals on this computer locally for this particular trip. So that's one thing you want to check. And you're going to go into every single device that you have that's running Mylio, and you're going to take a look at that. So on your tablet, again, you're going to go into the dashboard here on the left. You're going to choose your tablet, and you're going to go over, and you'll have to check the storage on each device. You can't check it here. So if I go to iPad, I can't see my device storage settings for my iPad unless I'm actually on the iPad in the Mylio app. Same goes for my phone. To get to those settings on my phone, what you're going to do is go to the dashboard icon, which is in the top bar. And again, you'll click devices, choose your phone, and then you'll be able to see those same storage, device storage things. So that's how you're going to check the storage. Now, once you do that, you're going to have, like I said, you're going to need to do it on every single device and check and see that you have enough space to get through your trip. Now, if you're running low on storage, there are a few things you can do. The first one up is to clear the cache, and that removes any temporary files that are no longer needed on that device. You can adjust the storage settings in Mylio to allow Mylio Photos to use more of the available disk space. That was what I was referring to right here where I have it set to auto manage. You can turn that off and then allow Mylio to use additional space on that particular device. You can adjust the sync policy. So by default, your phones, your tablets, and your laptops are going to be set to space saver. If that's using up too much space, you can switch that to a different sync policy temporarily while you're traveling, so Mylio has the space it needs to store those originals. Sometimes when I'm traveling, I will switch my computer to the travel backup sync policy, which essentially, we're going to talk about this more in a few minutes, but it keeps everything from the last 3 months on my computer and then basically puts the rest of my library at catalog only. So that way I'm only focusing on the most recent things, and that keeps those things safe and available for me. On your mobile devices, if your phone or your tablet are running low on space, you can use the free up space option. Now, this is something we could spend an entire coffee break on, and hopefully Lori will go ahead and link to this chapter in the manual and to the previous coffee break that we did. But essentially what this does is it allows you to focus your storage on Mylio and clean off pictures that are safely backed up in Mylio from your camera roll or media library. If you don't want to do that, if you want to keep everything that's in your camera roll, the only other option for you there is going to be to pay for cloud storage either with Google or with Apple, and then turn on the optimization setting so the device itself can offload to its own cloud. So you either need to rely on your storage in Mylio, or you're going to have to probably pay for additional cloud storage with Apple or Google. So that's something to think about, but you can use the free up space option on your phone, and that will delete everything from your camera roll or media library that is safely backed up to Mylio. And then the last option, if you are running low on space, is to delete unnecessary files outside of Mylio, such as removing files that are no longer needed from your downloads folder, your system trash. If you're on a phone or tablet, deleting apps that you no longer need or use. I've noticed that there's certain games out there that tend to use up a lot of space. So take a look at what different apps and different things that you're doing on your phone might be taking up space. That could free up some space for additional photos while you're traveling. So those are just some of the steps you can take if your storage is running low. The second thing you want to do is check your sync in Mylio. So before you leave, you want to make sure all of your devices are happy. And that includes not just the devices you're taking with you, but your actual storage devices, your vaults that you might be leaving at home. So you're going to open up the dashboard and go back into devices, and you're going to look for this blue check mark on all of your devices. If you see a number and that it's syncing, give it some time. If things seem to be going slow, what you're going to do is click on that number. So click on this bottom piece of the device card, and then you're going to see which files you're needing to sync and make sure the available devices are online and able to synchronize those things. And just keep in mind that for mobile devices, your phones and your tablets, Mylio has to be on and running in the foreground in order for those things to sync. So before you leave, you just want to make sure everything's happy before you start this major influx of new images. We're going to go here to devices, and you can see my MacBook Pro has a blue check mark. I can see here that my iPad and my iPhone need a couple of things. So I'm going to go ahead and later on turn those on, let Mylio run and get those things in sync before I leave. And then scrolling down here, I can see with my storage devices, this drive is in sync. This one needs some media. This one needs some media, and so forth. So before I leave, I want to wait for all of these to be happy and have their nice big blue check marks. All right, so jumping back over here to Canva. There we go. One other thing you want to check is if you are planning to have Mylio backing up the pictures from your phone, make sure you have your sync camera roll turned on. In most cases, this is something you do when you first set up Mylio on your phone, but it's worth mentioning because there are times when people, for some reason, may have temporarily turned this off and didn't realize it, and then they wonder why all of their phone pictures are not coming into Mylio. So what you're going to do is go into your settings and into sync and make sure that sync camera roll or sync media library is turned on. So what you're going to do here is on your phone or your tablet, you're going to go up here to the more menu, the three dots in the upper right, and you're going to go down to settings and sync, and then make sure that that sync camera roll option is turned on. So that'll make sure that every time you open up the Mylio app on your phone or your tablet, that those pictures from that camera roll or media library are always coming in. The next thing that you're going to want to do is set up a travel backup drive. This is going to be in addition to, let's say you're taking your tablet or you're taking your laptop. This is going to be external storage that's going to have a second copy of everything that you can keep safe. So the perfect device for this is going to be usually an SSD drive. I have, things like this little SSD. This one's a SanDisk. There's several other brands out there, but they're portable, they're lightweight, they're very fast, and they're very durable, which makes them really great travel companions. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into Mylio and add this new drive as a travel backup. So when you want to set up a travel backup, what you're going to do is go into devices, and you're going to go up here to add device. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and we're going to choose external drive. And that's going to take a look at any connected drives that I have on my computer and let me know what is available to add. So I have this X10 Pro here, and I can go up here to continue. And this is going to analyze the drive, analyze the size of my library, and suggest a sync policy. Now, sync policy is just telling Mylio what's supposed to be on this device. Now, it's suggesting the highest rated, but that's not what we want. We want travel backup. So we're going to go down here to custom setup, and we're going to scroll down on the list here to travel backup. And you can see this is going to keep full-size copies of all of my media, that's photos and videos, for the last 3 months. Other media will not be backed up. It's just for the recent stuff. So we're going to say looks good. And that's going to go ahead and add this device as a brand new travel backup. I already have one, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. And we're going to scroll down here and take a look at my travel backup drive. So with this particular device, I can go into device sync policies, and you see that I have the travel backup preset applied here. And then down below, I have a few additional things that I've set to override this or be in addition to the preset here on this drive. So I've got things from 2023 through 2026. This drive has plenty of space. It's a 4 terabyte drive. So I wanted to make sure I added a few extra things. So I've got extra photos here, everything in my library that's a 4 and 5 star, and of course the 3 months back, which is part of this preset. So that's everything that I have on my travel backup drive. Now, the beauty of this drive is right now it's connected to my Mac, but I can disconnect it from my Mac and I can go plug it into my iPad if all I'm traveling with is my phone and my iPad. And if you have a newer iPhone, one that is USB-C, you can even connect it directly to an iPhone and use it directly with that. So you don't have to take your laptop. It's very, very flexible. And what this does is it gives you one more place to keep those original quality files. So in case your phone gets lost or stolen, or maybe even your other device, maybe you're carrying around your iPad, but you have your SSD drive in your luggage. If one of those gets lost, you still have another complete copy of all of the photos from your trip that is safe and protected. So that's what's really important about having that additional backup. So let's talk about putting this all together into something that makes sense. What we're going for here is a 3-2-1 backup scenario that works while you're traveling. So I'm going to give you a real world example of my trip to Scotland last year where I took my big camera, I took my phone, and I took my iPad. Of course, I had my SSD travel backup drive as well. So what I did was I used my iPhone and my big camera for capturing images. And then when I got back to the hotel in the evening, I would pull out my iPad, I would plug in my SSD travel backup drive, and everything from my iPhone and my camera would get backed up. So I'd import my pictures directly into my iPad, and I'd take my pictures, I'd open up Mylio on my iPhone. Those would all come into Mylio, they'd sync to my iPad, and then they would synchronize to that external SSD. So this was effectively giving me 2 out of 3 of the 3-2-1 backup, which sometimes is as good as you can do while you're on the road. Getting that third piece, that offsite backup, is often a little bit more challenging because bandwidth and internet speeds can be really iffy when you're traveling. A lot of times hotels, if they have Wi-Fi, I mean, most of them do these days, but it's usually slow. And if you're trying to move a lot of data, they oftentimes will throttle you. So maybe the first, 50 pictures that you have get backed up to your computer at home or to Mylio Drive Plus or another cloud. But then all of a sudden, everything screeches to a halt and things take a very, very long time to load. That's something you just have to be aware of and account for. So you want to make sure you have at least 2 separate copies of your images in 2 separate places within what you're traveling with. So I'll have my phone and my camera usually on me, and then my iPad and my SSD in potentially 2 separate bags. So that way, if any one of those pieces is compromised, I still have another copy of all of those pictures. So I use the iPad, and I will set my iPad because my iPad has a terabyte of storage. I went ahead and purposely got a bigger one. So I can set that to the travel backup sync policy as well. This is not limited to external drives. You can set your laptop to travel backup as well. That way it defaults to keeping all 3 months of those recent photos locally on that device. So my first copy was the iPad. My second copy was that SSD drive. And then my third copy, when bandwidth allowed, things would synchronize to Mylio Drive Plus. So I have Mylio Drive Plus, which is Mylio's cloud. You could use Google Drive, you could use Microsoft OneDrive, you can use an S3 cloud if you're using your own cloud service. Those are all great options. It's just a matter of making sure Mylio has a chance to back those things up and run. So what I would often do is once I got all of my stuff into from my camera and my phone into my iPad, I would leave my iPad connected to the SSD overnight, plugged in with power, with Mylio running, and just let it sync. Excuse me. So that made sure that most of my stuff did make it to the cloud and got backed off with the offsite backup before I got home. So that's just one more layer. And this really protects you from anything being lost. I would still have 1 or 2 other copies. So that's really what we're trying to get at today is make sure that those memories that you're taking and making on this trip, those are protected and they make it home with you. So before you leave, just to kind of recap, what you're going to do is you're going to check your device storage. Check it on every single device that you want to bring, your laptop, your tablet, your phone, and of course, make sure you have enough memory cards for that standalone camera. If you're going to be taking pictures with your phone, make sure that camera roll sync is enabled. It probably is, but it's worth double checking because sometimes people go in and temporarily turn that off. Excuse me. You're going to want to confirm that every device in Mylio in the dashboard is showing as fully synced, that you've got those nice, big, beautiful blue check marks. I do recommend setting up an SSD drive, a little portable drive, as a travel backup. And that's going into Mylio and telling it to use the travel backup sync policy. If you're traveling with an iPad or a laptop and you have adequate storage space, I recommend setting those to the travel backup sync policy as well. Make sure you pack your SSD, your cables, and any adapters you need. And don't forget to bring a card reader if you're bringing a standalone camera. The reason I added that there is for my trip to Scotland, because I brought my iPad. The iPad, of course, only has that one port, the USB-C port on it. So I had a USB-C card reader that I could just take my card out of my camera, plug it into that, and that allowed me to import directly from my camera or my memory card directly into Mylio, and then it's synced with everything else. Then the last piece here is what you need to do while you're on the road, just to make sure that the system all works, is I suggest at least once a day, open Mylio on your phone and let it import the camera roll. That is a huge piece of the puzzle right there. You need to give Mylio time to see those pictures and fully sync them with any other devices that you're wanting to send those pictures to. So Mylio has to be open and running in the foreground. The best way to do this, I found, is to turn on Mylio in the evening. If I'm ready to go to bed, make sure the app is open, plugged into power, and then set it down face down on my nightstand so the light doesn't bother me. Confirm that your camera roll is synced and import the memory card. If you're using a standalone camera, you make that part of your daily routine is import your camera memory cards to Mylio every evening. Again, it gets those pictures into that system and keeps things backed up so you always have more than one copy of your stuff. Connect your SSD to Mylio so it can sync. So connect it to your tablet, your phone, or your laptop, whatever you're traveling with. And again, evenings or overnight work really well, and just give everything a chance to synchronize. This stuff doesn't happen instantly. And the bigger the files that you're working with, the longer this takes. So that's something else to consider. If you're just shooting JPEG on a phone, it'll typically be pretty quick. If you're like me and you're shooting like a Canon R5 Mark II, which is like a 45 megapixel camera, or you're shooting those massive 40 plus megapixel images on an iPhone and you're shooting in them raw, those can take more time. So just kind of keep that calculus in mind. And then my final tip here is to pack that SSD in a different pack than you do your phone, your tablet. And if one gets lost or stolen, the other one still has all of your photos. So nobody wants to have any of their stuff compromised while they're on the road, but these accidents do happen. And I want to make sure that your pictures make it home safe with you. And having multiple copies is the best way to do that. Just a reminder that next week will be a short week. There will be no Q&A on Thursday, and there will be no coffee break on Friday. We'll be taking a little bit of time off for the 4th of July weekend, but we will have live Q&A on Tuesday at 11:30, and Lori will have her Just Ask for New Users on Wednesday at 11:30. The following week, so after we get back from the 4th of July holiday, we are going to be jumping into Overdrive and start talking about our next release of Mylio. We have got some really, really cool stuff planned for you guys, and I cannot wait to show you. I've been telling you about it now for like weeks or possibly months, but I will actually be able to show you. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Keep that in mind for what we have coming up in July. But next week, hope to see you at live Q&A and at Just Ask. And I think that's it for today. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.